Today, we're going to talk about the unbelievable story of one man's courage in the face of absolute evil. This is the story of the audacity of Raoul Wallenberg. I want to start with a number, and honestly, it's a horrifying one: 437,000. That's how many Hungarian Jews were sent to their deaths at Auschwitz. And get this, it happened in just 2 months, in the summer of 1944. After that wave of terror, only one large Jewish community in Europe was left standing. And by July, the crosshairs were settling right on its capital. Budapest was next. But right into the middle of this nightmare, a completely unexpected person shows up. A truly unlikely hero arrives. So, who was this guy? Well, meet Raoul Wallenberg. When he got off the plane in Budapest, he was only 31 years old. He wasn't a soldier, not a spy. He was a businessman and an architect. He had absolutely no military training, but he did have one single tool in his belt: a diplomatic appointment from his home country, Sweden. So keep that picture in your head: an ordinary businessman and architect. Now look at this number. By the time Budapest was freed just a few months later, Raoul Wallenberg was credited with saving the lives of nearly 100,000 people. So how on earth did he do it? Well, his whole method was just as brilliant as it was bold. And believe it or not, it all came down to a simple weapon: paper. This was his main tool. It was called a Schutzpass, and he actually designed it himself. It was basically a Swedish protective passport, and it officially declared that whoever was holding it was under the protection of the Swedish government while they were, quote, awaiting emigration. And this is where the genius of it all really clicks. The whole thing was a massive bluff. In truth, that piece of paper had no real legal authority, none. Sweden was neutral. It couldn't actually protect Hungarian citizens from the Nazis. But Wallenberg understood the fatal flaw of his enemy: their blind obsession with bureaucracy. So his bluff was that this very official-looking document, with its fancy letterhead, all the right stamps, the photos, would be enough. It looked real. And in a system like that, looking real could mean the difference between life and death. And he wasn't just sitting in an office somewhere handing these things out. No way. Wallenberg's operations were unbelievably hands-on. We're talking about him running down to the train stations, shoving Schutzpasses through the windows of cattle cars, even literally pulling people off the trains just before they left. He set up 32 protected Swedish houses all over Budapest, flew the Swedish flag outside, and declared them Swedish territory, sheltering thousands inside. Now you can imagine, this kind of courage put him on a direct collision course with the man who was engineering the whole genocide in Hungary. And that leads us to this chilling moment: dinner with a monster. So, picture this. It's December 1944. The war is almost over, but the killing is more frantic than ever. And Raoul Wallenberg sits down to dinner. The man sitting right across the table from him: SS Lieutenant Colonel Adolf Eichmann, the architect of the deportations himself. Eichmann knew exactly what Wallenberg was up to, and he threatened him, right to his face. He said, "You're a Jew dog. We'll find a way to kill you too. Even you are not safe from an accident." Just let that sink in for a second. A direct death threat from one of the most powerful mass murderers in the Third Reich. And Wallenberg's response? He didn't flinch. He just continued his work the very next morning. It's not that he wasn't scared. It's that his sense of what was right was just stronger than his fear. He wrote in a letter making it crystal clear: "I will not leave Budapest. To leave would be a betrayal." So he survived the Nazis. He actually outwitted Eichmann. But what happened next is the great, heartbreaking tragedy of this story: the hero's mysterious disappearance. When the Soviet army finally liberated Budapest in January 1945, Wallenberg went to meet them. He was hoping to talk about plans to rebuild, but instead they arrested him. For years, nobody knew what happened. Then, in 1947, the Soviets just claimed he died of a heart attack. But that story never added up. Witness after witness kept reporting that they'd seen him alive in Soviet prisons for years. It actually wasn't until 2016, more than 70 years later, that his own country, Sweden, officially declared him dead. The very people he went to meet as liberators became his captors. The words he said to his driver right before that meeting, they were just tragically spot on. He said, "I don't know if I am going as a guest or a prisoner." His life ended in a dark Soviet prison, but his story didn't end there. And that's what we need to look at now, the legacy of this one man. This really gets to the heart of it all, right? What made him do what he did when so many others looked away? I mean, he wasn't Jewish. He could have just stayed safe and sound back in Sweden. Why risk everything? And the answer seems to boil down to this really powerful, simple idea. As one historian put it, knowledge had made inaction impossible for him. Knowing required a response. You see, once he truly knew what was happening, he felt he had no other choice but to act. You can stay neutral when you're ignorant, but you can't when you know the truth. And what a response it was. Israel has honored him as righteous among the nations. He was even awarded honorary U.S. citizenship, which is incredibly rare. But his real legacy, his real impact, is human. The tens of thousands of people he saved, they went on to have children and grandchildren. Today, their descendants number in the hundreds of thousands. And maybe this is the most powerful thought to leave you with. Eichmann threatened him with death, with an accident. But just look at what happened. Every single life he saved, and every life that has been lived since because of him, each one of them is Raoul Wallenberg's final, definitive answer to that monster. He built a legacy of life that totally and completely swallowed a promise of death.